Hi, and welcome to Art Conspiracy. I'm Amy, and today I want to talk to you about studios, and in particular my new studio, which is what I'm in right now. And studios are such a special place. I mean, the word studio, it can be this grand, loft in New York or a chateau. I've seen amazing studios, but studios can also be very humble and small and functional, and it's basically a dedicated space for you to do artwork. And so I want to talk a little bit about how to set up a studio or how I set up my studio. And I want to show you a couple from the past. I've had many, many different kinds of studios. And then I'm going to give you a little tour. So stick around and welcome. Glad to have you here. Again, like I said, the studio is sort of a sacred place to be, and setting one up or moving one, creating a new one, I think is a very creative endeavor. For me, a lifelong artist and professional, I've got a lot of supplies and I also have a lot of habits already, but so I kind of have an idea of what I need. But one of the things that I have learned over the many studios all, throughout the years is that I really don't know for sure how I'm going to set it up or how the setup will work until I start working. And still I'm in there getting my projects going and like in um, process. Then I'm like, oh, I can't find this. I need this shelf closer, or I need a bigger table, or because the whole idea of the studio is to make it easy to work, make it easy, and also hopefully not have to put your stuff away all the time, and clear off this to get to do this, and just make it easy. So whether it's small or big, the goal is function first, but it's also form. Form meaning, does it feel good to be there? Because if it doesn't, you're not going to stay there and you're not going to get any work done. So I think you need both a functional environment and an environment that you want to be in and you want to stay in. And again, whether it's big or small, those things apply. So I want to show you a couple of my favorite studios. Like I said, I have had studios my whole life, and I've had studios in attics and basements and garages and condos and trailers, you name it. A storefront. I had a really great studio in a storefront once. It was so much fun. And they all had the same thing in common: form and function. And you just make it work wherever you go. You got to have a studio. So let me show you a couple, which I think will be kind of fun to see. So here's one that was in like a warehouse, and it was a artist co-op. So I had a room, and there were a bunch of other artists in the building, and it was freezing cold in Seattle. The walls were paper thin, but it worked. I had a lot of work going on in there, and it was a good place. Here's a studio in Ballard, and again in the Seattle area. If your studio comes with a dog, all the better. This is my dog Roxy, who I don't have anymore, but that was a fun picture. This one, oh my gosh, this was, yeah, that's me. Oh my God, a long time ago. But this studio was in an old Catholic school, which I went to Catholic school, so this brought back a lot of memories for me. But it was, a defunct Catholic school, and they rented out the classrooms. And actually, this was very early on, and this was a wonderful studio in Spokane, Washington, many moons ago. Here's one in Thailand. I actually rented a studio apartment in a condo building, and I just had them take out the bed. And so I had a big room basically with I left in the tables, and I brought in some chairs, and like you can see over here, this is two nightstands stacked up. So I just kind of used the furniture that was left besides the bed and made it work. And that was a really good studio. This is another Seattle area studio that I was just moving into. But this reminds me about this idea of lighting. Like that, isn't that beautiful light come into that studio? But the whole idea that your studio needs good light is a little bit of a myth. And I'll tell you why, because the lighting, good lighting in terms of light through the windows is more about the form, about feeling good to be there, than it is about the function. Because if you work from a situation where you're using natural light, the light changes all the time. You know, throughout the day, the light will change. The clouds go over the sun. Like if setting up a still life where you have a model and it's lit, it's much better to be able to control the light than to use natural light. So anyway, I just want to throw that out there, debunking one of the myths of art world. Here's a studio in the house where I am now. This was such a great idea. It was this big porch sort of on the side of the house, and I screened it in, and I was so excited, but the roof leaked, and I tried for several years to try to use the studio, but it actually never functioned very well. So I basically abandoned ship. This is another throwback. There's my dog Roxy again. And this studio actually was also a teaching center. And each little student had their own little station, so to speak. And then when they weren't there, I got to use the whole space. So studios, you know, come in all shapes and sizes. Here's another one, actually in that condo building. Another one that's super skinny. Sometimes your studios are temporary. This one I actually set up on the porch or the patio and worked from there for a while, which was really fun. This one was a studio I set up at a workshop called Kanuga. And it was to introduce myself to this art community. And so I set up a workshop and I brought all this work in progress and tried to mock up the feeling of a studio where, you know, I actually had been working in it for 2 years instead of just showed up the day before. So that was really fun challenge. So anyway, those are just a few studios that I've had in the past. So this is the new one. And I want to give you just a little bit of an overview, and then I'm going to walk you around. But it's pretty spacious. And one of the main things I needed was to create a big table for doing paint and collage, which is what I'm doing right now. But I also needed a place to do watercolor. I needed a place to do this, teaching and recording. And I also needed a place to do drawing. So I had like wet media station and a dry media station. And luckily I had enough tables and I have enough space to do all this. But you have to kind of think through how you work and try to set up the room. So let me show you. I changed my pen and show you, give you a little bit of a tour. So here's the big space. And I'll start with the big table. This is actually 3 tables put together. And this is where I'm going to do collage and painting. I have a nice shelf with supplies, and in that shelf are, you know, supplies just for this kind of process, acrylic painting and collage, some supplementary stuff. You also need a little inspiration around your studio. I love my prayer flag, some of my favorite paintings. This little table, this is kind of funny. This is my drawing station. And as you can see, I have got a lot of drawing supplies. In fact, they take up way more space on the table than where I'm actually going to draw. And again, this is kind of temporary until I actually get in here and start working. So we'll see how it goes. I have 3 lights set up around the table so that I can, you know, have a lot of good light on what I'm working on. Okay, this is sort of a catch-all table right now, and storage. Here is my watercolor supplies and watercolor station. This table over here might actually end up being watercolor. Right now it's catch-all. And then I have my teaching studio or my little, this is like more like my little office. You know, I have some art supplies. I definitely work here as well. But I have, you know, things set up so that I can record and teach the Zoom with my students. And then I have a little couch because you need a place to sit and ponder and, you know, read an art book. Here's one of my favorite books, Wabi Sabi for Artists, Designers, and Philosophers. I'm always talking about Wabi Sabi. It's an actual thing. and the art of Buddhism, which I'm studying since I live in Thailand. I want to know more about the art forms of Asia. So that's a little tour. Let me go back to me. And let's see, I want to finish up, honestly, with a little bit of a pep talk. And that is, if you do art, try to carve out some space. Now, it doesn't even have to be a room. It can be a cart, like a wheelie cart where you keep your supplies and you wheel it over the table. But you need some sort of designated art space. And depending on how important it is to you, honestly, I bet there's things that you can put aside and make it an art thing instead of whatever it is you're doing there. Try to find it. Be creative. Try to find. I mean, the thing is, if it is a pain in the butt to get your art supplies out and sit down and do it, you're not going to do it. Like if you want to, get into a mindset where you're making art on a regular basis, you really need to make it easier to access your stuff and to have a place to work and to, not have it be a big deal to just sit down and start, and get a little something done in a half an hour, right? So I really want to encourage everyone. One of my first studios was in a kitchen. This is when my first son was like 5 years old, little kid. Anyway, I had a kitchen and I made my studio in a closet. And I had a table in the closet, literally, that took up the entire closet. It was like a broom closet almost. Little table with my supplies, and that was it. And literally, you'd open the door, and the chair I would sit in at the table would be in the kitchen, and the table was in the closet. So, I mean, you do what you got to do, but get yourself a little space and make a studio. So that's what I got to say. That's what I got to offer today. I swore I'd never say this, but if you would like to see more of these videos, hit subscribe. And I'm going to commit myself to making one a week. I've been sort of sporadic, but I'm going to get on it and recommit because I really love sharing my love of art and the process. And if you are interested in any particular topic, get a hold of me, leave a comment, whatever. So that's it. See you from Art Conspiracy. See you next time. Bye.